Retail Smarts podcast. Today with me we have two very seasoned retail professionals that have, willingly, funnily enough, decided to join me on our inaugural Retail Smarts podcast. So we've got Cameron Douglas from Videopro and Yaz, I'm not even going to attempt to say your surname, but you can just pop it in there for me.
Grigaliunas.
Thank you. From World's Biggest Garage Sale. So you may have seen these guys around our awards night, certainly at some of our events. They are notoriously part of our panels just because they are just so interesting. And you may also be aware that they used to work with each other. So it's quite an interesting dynamic and I'm sure we'll have lots of fun today.
This is a pre-cooked dynamic.
There's no warming. Yeah,
no warming. So Cameron, I might start with you. Tell us a bit about your business.
Yep. So Videopro is a business of two parts. We have a consumer electronics retailing arm, and we also have a audiovisual integration business. Consumer electronics retailing, I think people understand pretty well. In the AV integration space, we do office fit outs and lecture theatres for universities and smart buildings and video conferencing and things like that. And we have been around since 1980. I've been asked before if I was the founder, and I said no. It's a great business. We're Queensland based. We've got about 110 people up here.
Fantastic. And Yaz, tell us about your amazing business that does so many good things.
So the World's Biggest Garage Sale, we started off as a company even a hobby actually, to just raise money by having a garage sale to give that money to charity. And then what happened is it started to explode into this big movement. And after 3 years of just volunteering once a year for a month to build garage sales, we realised we'd raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'd given all that money away, but the challenge for us was then how do we scale these circular economy initiatives where we can actually enter this whole retail re-commerce space. So I like to call ourselves a bit of an accidental business, but through some good mentoring and learning that I had in my Videopro times, and I feel like I could have pitched that for you then, and I reckon I would have done all right, Cameron.
I think you're doing a great job.
I still sometimes almost answer the phone, "Hi, this is Yasmin from Videopro," which is funny. But look, what we did is we went in with our eyes open. We never went in with an expectation and a business plan and a business canvas and strategy to start the world's biggest garage sale. We just went in and did what we call GSD, which is get shit done. We executed well, and then we started to see the opportunities, and not just here in this country and even our city and state, but globally. And so when we started to realise the billions and trillions of dollars worth of product sitting around dormant, that became the problem we wanted to solve. And then how to make that dormant product not just reactivate for a circular economy, but how to make the revenues from that sale actually have impact for charities and social enterprises.
So just diverting you there, what was your first job?
Silvio's pizza delivery driver at Redbank Plains, and Kerry May, Don May's sister, was actually my first ever boss, and she was really tough, but I loved it. Like, she taught me some amazing values. I was, I think, the only female driver in the store. I was in year 12 and I was driving around in my Datsun Sunny, red, of course, so I went faster, and I was a really good driver. You got paid by the delivery, and that just was like, it triggered something in me. I'm like, I might have sped a little, but I don't do that now. But I would just want to deliver pizzas, but every time I got to the door, all I wanted to do was delight the customer and be like the favourite driver in the store. So customers would just feel like they had this amazing experience. And then from there, I did that for a few years, became manager of the store out at Ipswich, and actually didn't do tertiary education because of that job opportunity. So I've never looked back. I don't regret not going to uni. I sometimes think, should I, could I? But I feel like my university has been through mentors and advisors along the way who have really helped coach me, and I seem to be or gravitate towards people like Kerry, who have incredibly strong values, high expectations, and I just love it. That energizes me.
And Cameron, what was your first job?
Well, I had a lot of jobs before I started at Videopro, and Videopro was my first full-time job. So I sort of did everything from guitar teacher to milkman. I worked for the Fisher and Paykel factory. I worked in a service station doing night shifts, just a whole bunch of different things. And then I sold fruit to the person who was asking me the questions, which happened to be Yasmin's husband at the time, and that's where my first job at Videopro started. And I feel that I could probably help, and I've probably helped as many people pronounce your last name as you have throughout that time.
You probably have.
Yas. I said, what's her last name? I said, it's Grigaliunas.
Grigaliunas. No, you're good at that, Cameron. And you were definitely, I still remember hiring you, and I was like, now that's the type of people that we need on the team. And you always just, and I'm not saying it to suck up because, you know, it's real and I feel like people should be very authentic, but you were seriously my most memorable and best hire, and I didn't plan it, but you just had that energy, that spark, that you got to just find this guy a job whether he's got the experience or not, because he's going to do great things. And look at you now.
Thanks, Yaz.
So how old were you when you took that?
It was the Monday that I started was the weekend after my 21st birthday party.
It was.
Yeah, so I started at 21, and I got a lot of Yasmin's pizza training coming through because there were rules, you know, like how many times the phone could ring.
No more than 3.
That was a rule. And, you know, the whole raving fans model and, you know, delighting your customer was always front and centre in everything that we did in that team.
Yeah, we were a great team.
that was some good times.
And how do you, what do you think, do you think that it was Yaz's mentorship that kept you going through retail and got you, through to this point, or people like her?
Yeah, absolutely. Yaz and Lee were definitely the earliest non-parental mentors that I had, because everyone kind of looks up to mum and dad, and then you eventually start to sort of find other people. And, not just from a organisational perspective or a work perspective, but also personal stuff, talking about like finances and things like that, when we were all pretty young, really, but you had a couple more years on me of experience, and that was certainly helpful. But yeah, I learned a lot. I learned what high expectations look like. Yaz is notoriously has high expectations, and she doesn't have high expectations without the substance that backs them up to put the work in to meet those high expectations. She has high expectations on all the time, and her highest expectations on herself. I think it's safe to say.
And you said that it was Cameron's energy that attracted you to wanting to employ him, as a 21-year-old, who now, would be one of our millennials. What else do you look at when you look to hire people in your business?
Oh, definitely attitude. Like for me, Cameron's degrees were obviously, attractive. When you look on paper, he ticked a lot of boxes. But for us, when we were looking to expand the team, it was actually more about the people, more about what sort of person is he. What is his energy like, or hers? But in Cameron's case, when I reflect back to that time, like even just little things, like I remember the fact that you were musical. I thought, wow, that's a really good quality. People who are musical have you can make assumptions that they're creative and quite diverse in the background of all the different things that you had done. I felt like you had hustle in you, and clearly you did. And even your relationship with Nikki, right back then, that I thought, wow, he's going to marry his childhood sweetheart. They have a beautiful couple. And for me, rightly or wrongly, I might be breaking laws about how you hire people, but that was a long time ago. But for me, that still got a big tick, like stable, decent guy. His face would light up when he would talk about Nikki. So you can just, the body language of how someone talks, you can see if it's a prescribed, prepared response versus an emotive response. And I look for the emotion, that connection, that love. And look, we're not best mates and don't hang out on weekends together, but I know that if I needed something and vice versa, if Cameron needed something, we could pick up the phone to each other and do whatever it took to help the other one out. And I think that it comes down to that. I felt like we could form a really strong relationship. And whether that's inappropriate or not, that is what I love in business and in hiring teams. People who actually want to be part of a family, like a tribe.
Yeah, and I think it's also about being authentic, like people that are connected with their authentic selves. And certainly I know we've discussed this in your team now. What do you look for when you're hiring?
So something that I often say, and it may be a little extreme, just to get the reaction, but professionalism really is kind of dead, and long live authenticity. And when people see people who are overly professional, it's a suit of armor, and that's not who I'm dealing with. That's an actor that's kind of putting on a display. However, another piece of great advice that I've had before is if you're going to ask someone to open up, you better be ready to catch.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people still struggle on where that authenticity can actually take you, because if you really want to go and get deep into somebody's soul, it can be a pretty hectic place, and that's where you need to be, I guess, emotionally mature or comfortable enough to go down that path without, going, oh, I've come too far, I've dug too far, I've hit somewhere I don't want to be, I'm backing out now, and you've opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah.
So authenticity can be a super powerful thing, but it brings with it some responsibilities that you then take on when you're going into that space. So certainly, from my perspective in hiring, attitude and authenticity are super important, and so is work ethic. It's really important that people are going to take ownership, get in, do the work. I've done a lot of academic study, and I'm very pro academic study. One thing I'm not pro is people sitting around in a room philosophizing an idea for 3 weeks straight when someone else can just get in there and do the job. Because that seems to be something that's a little common nowadays. There's just a lot of talk and someone's got to roll up their sleeves and do something. GSD.
It's funny, I want to touch on a point that you made in relation to another reason I loved you, Cameron, and still to this day, is I always have this, and it's weird even saying it, but people are sometimes scared of me, and I'm not scary. I'm the most soft little kitten on the inside, but I'm definitely fiercely committed to excellence. So that can be quite contradictory, right? To have empathy and love, but also this intensity. But you were never scared. You would question stuff, and I loved that. I love the challenge of new ideas being planted, and people challenging you and asking why and pushing the envelope, and you always did that so well. And a lot of leaders who have big egos probably would not like that, but I loved it, and I would always, and I felt like even in the interview I could see that he's going to be a go-getter, and that's really quite critically important.
I kind of try and balance out every single business and leadership book that I read with a biography, because whenever you hear about business books and it's you need to do this, and there's a lot of entrepreneur candy out there at the moment, and people are just consuming motivational stuff left, right and center, which is like a drug unto itself, because if you sit down and you try to listen to a really intellectual book or read, that can be quite challenging and hard work. If you've got some motivational speaker yelling at you on YouTube as you're driving your car to work, that feels good, but it doesn't necessarily bring about much more than maybe an extra set at the gym or something like that. So there is kind of a lot of that entrepreneurial candy that I'm critical of, I guess.
That's a hot tip, though, that people should note is balance out what they're consuming. I really like that. I think biographies are really valuable reads.
So something that always cracks me up is whenever I see a Steve Jobs quote doing the circle on LinkedIn, right? And it's something like, if we don't hire good people and then tell them what to do. We hire good people so they can tell us what to do. Anyone who's read Steve Jobs' biography would be like, this is so not how Steve Jobs worked.
It's not how he was.
He literally told everybody what to do in a very aggressive kind of manner. But we turn these people into myths. And we forget, and we're like, actually, all that change that happened was kind of catastrophic. If you read about Edison or any of these superstars of history, they did some pretty crazy things to get to where they are, things that would by no means be acceptable in today's kind of standards.
So why don't we tell those stories, if that's what it took for them to get to that level?
Well, so when you read that business book and it just gives you all of the basic motivational stuff, and this is how you're going to become a millionaire and blah, 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 blah. What it doesn't tell you that the biography tells you is, like Edison's first wife died of a basically loneliness because he was never around. You've got people with estranged relationships with their kids and all these horrible things that are actually what you pay to become that successful. And I don't consider myself an entrepreneur because there are certain things that I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice to get to wherever I want to go. It may be a values and ethics thing. It may be just the relationships that you have with people, but they all need to be catered for. They all need to be taken into consideration. Onto the VP and the sort of female representation. The greatest, and I'm very comfortable with this topic now, and I think there's still a lot of men who are uncomfortable talking to this topic, and there's still a lot of conversation that can be very win-lose. But if everybody can kind of speak about it without fear of
I love that.
Reprisal.
Reprisal. You can make a lot more progress. So I am very pro diversity and bringing people into the business. But it's extrememely hard. And I'm not willing to bring the wrong person in to get the numbers that I would like. The biggest issue that I have, and I remember speaking on diversity in one of your panels, Dom, and ironically that was to the fashion industry. So, in the fashion industry, there's a majority that are women. Their situation is leadership roles, where the percentages drop down. In our industry, it is so much a male-dominated industry. Getting females into the industry at all is our difficulty. And I'm reading a lot of stuff now, particularly on the commercial integration side of the business, where just getting people into our industry is hard, let alone getting women into our industry. Because we are an industry where if everything works perfectly, it's totally transparent. And if things don't work perfectly, it's catastrophic and horrible, and this is the worst thing ever. Everyone understands AV. Everyone's been in a boardroom where the video call didn't work. Everyone's experienced this. And if you sit in that room and everything runs perfectly, you don't even notice it. So it's a really interesting industry to be in. So what we have to do is we have to sort of get out and try and attract the right talent to actually come in. And we've got to try and change maybe a role description if we can't attract the right range of people to come in. If you just keep putting out the same role and you keep getting the same kind of role back. And what that actually is it's not just changing a role for the sake of changing a role. You're changing the strategy of your business now when you start changing what people are going to do. So now what we have to do is go, right, how do we grow the business? How do we evolve and mature the business? How do we run a successful business? I don't think anyone out there is going to go that retail's a really super easy industry to be in. And with all of those things taken into consideration, how do I now get a diverse talent pool that can come in and make all this stuff happen? So it's certainly, on our agenda, and it's something that we are actively trying to pursue. I've made mistakes and hired the wrong people to try and achieve more diversity. I've tried a lot of different things, and I guess the only thing that I can see that is really what's going to work is I just need to keep making an industry more appealing for women to actually come and want to work in. And luckily I spoke at the Integrate conference this year, which is the AV integration kind of big conference. And that topic came up, and and I said the same thing I said in that retail one. We need to create an industry that's inviting and appetite. It makes people want to come into it. It should. It's an experience industry.
It is. It's a great industry.
But somehow we fail to draw that connection still.
It's really interesting because there's some statistics that came out of the International Consortium of Human Resources or something along those lines that says that women between the ages of 18 to 35 do not leave employment because of motherhood, but they leave for exactly the same reasons as men between the ages of 18 to 35. And specifically what they're looking for is to be challenged, for you to know them, and for them to effectively have some form of autonomy. And it all comes down to, are they performing meaningful work? And many of them, they also say that women in those age brackets require more support at a time where they are choosing to take a leadership role, because they won't make the decision as quickly as a male. Well, we know that men will apply for a job that's 60% suited to them, and they simply just won't make that decision as easily. So I guess the critical thing in terms of getting women into leadership roles is going to be mentorship and genuine mentorship, and having your business units not have it as a token, that they are genuinely there to promote within.
And those role models.
Yeah.
The people that have carved the path that they can see.
Yeah, you have you when you can't be what you can't see.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I always... I'm a bit of a blokey girl anyway, right? Like I'm more, I'm just different, and I accept that. But I think that's like when I worked at Videopro, and I can name all the people now, like those amazing people that I would look up to, Jason Derry, Len Lotz, Graham Evans, all the people. You would just look at them and I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so inspired. I just want to be that good. And it just drove me to want to be able to produce really good results in my career. And I don't think I ever thought of my job as what the job was. Like if you wrote the position description of what I did, it wouldn't match the way I thought about what I was doing. And I feel like what you just said there is that experience and the mentoring and that genuine and you could consider yourself an ambassador in a way, Cameron, in that you're looking and seeking and wanting the right people to come on board so you can mentor them. I don't know that it's an industry thing. I think it's more a perception thing. So if we can change the perception of what people think working at somewhere like Videopro is, and they actually saw and experienced it for themselves, they would see that it's going to tick all the boxes that they'd want in their future career.
And we certainly have had some diversity wins in technical roles. I think half of our project managers are women. We've got a lot of female technicians and installers, which are, I guess, non-traditional in that space. And then there are other roles where it's really tough to get a diverse kind of people in the roles. But, it is tough if an industry can't attract in that right amount of talent. And I try and champion for the industry.
Yes.
Because the industry is what's going to inspire people to go, hey, I'd love to get more into that smart building stuff. Yeah. And not just the consulting side of the smart building stuff, but the doing side of the smart building stuff. Because, certainly with the firms and, some of the other enterprises, they have these phenomenal kind of diversity achievements that they've made. The roles are all very intellectual in their base, and I think that there's a huge, vast number of people that can come in and fill those roles. Yeah. Once you start to get technically specific about things, you shrink the pool.
The pool is
so you got to get out there and sort of tell everyone, hey, our industry's fantastic. You want to come in and have a go at it. It's a really fun industry to be in, and doing things like this or panels or getting out there and spreading the word, LinkedIn and the like. I do try and make people see that the AV industry is a great industry to be in for everybody.
Yeah, you've got that capacity to tell that story and then inspire people globally to be looking at companies like yours.
I mean, we have the same. I mean, retail has exactly the same problem in that it's not viewed as a career. I mean, both of you are obviously testament to the fact that it is a career, but people like Universal are making, specific choices to go and start advertising at university open days and be present on the ground and to promote from young people within, because they know that there is an existing career. I guess in terms of when you look at diversity in retail, right now we've got less than 13% of female CEOs. We have 55% women in our employment pool of 1.2 million people. We do not promote women well in this industry. We do not grow women well in this industry. If we don't grow women well, we're not growing any other diversity well. We're not helping LGBTI. We're not helping different races, different religions, anyone who is different from what you would automatically see. So the question around, equal pay is actually far greater than that. Yeah. Because if you don't have a diverse thinking pool, you're going to get 20% lesser of an outcome. So I guess, making our industry attractive to everyone is essential, but it has to be everyone. It's not just about women.
Yeah, I agree. We have the opposite challenge is my entire team are women. And we're really passionate about finding an opportunity to bring diversity into our company, because all of our team are white women as well. And like, we've got 4 people right now, and our next employment opportunities, we want to ensure that we're interviewing a diverse group of people who come from different backgrounds, who can bring different skills and help us as a company grow, because we feel that there's risk there.
I read Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey 12 years ago, right? And he's, for anyone who wants to know, he was the founder of Whole Foods Market. And his philosophy was, I'm going to build a business that sort of supports the environment and organic fair trade and all this kind of stuff. And it was just unreal. And since then, you've had other kind of terms come out, like shared value, creative capitalism. Circular economy is certainly probably more of a specific field inside that. But that is, in my opinion, one of the greatest ways to solve institutional or big problems. I'm devastated that Amazon bought Whole Foods, because, that's not Amazon's MO. What John Mackey did and what Conscious Capitalism did. And I sat on a panel the other day and someone asked me the question, like, what are you doing about the circular economy? I just name dropped you. Yes. I'm like, oh no, yes. Is this enough? But that's what we're kind of, and it's that leadership piece that needs to have space and to be able to make those sacrifices or make those decisions, because we have the bandwidth to do that, versus perhaps somebody that's just out there feeding their family and they don't quite have that.
But don't you think in retail now it's essential, especially with the rise of consumer activism? Like, we have no choice now as retailers. I mean, that's what the consumer's looking for. They're looking for you as leaders to make those decisions, whether it is about marriage equality, whether it's about, making sure your supply chain doesn't have child labour in it, whether it's, around gender equity. I mean, there's so many things that a consumer now expects you to have a view on.
There are organisational responses, though, and there's so many things that our employees expect of us as well. And that is a great balance. You are, when you run a business now, there was always the picture of you got to flip the pyramid upside down, and that almost felt like a lip service. But now it is 100% the reality. You are not powerful as a business owner. You are at the bottom of the triangle, and you have to keep everybody happy. And that's what you sign up for. So there's no issues with that. Well and truly, this is what I've signed up for. This is what allows me to be in this role. But that is a lot of weight for a lot of people to carry, and it needs to be somewhat spread across the organisational leadership team to be able to answer all of those issues, because we can't put that down on different levels of employees to be thinking that way. All we can do is create a value system inside the organisation that gives them a decision-making framework which is in line with the company's values, blah, 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 so that we don't get caught up in bad things just because somebody somewhere did something that somebody else didn't like. And all of a sudden you've been represented not how you would like to be represented.
Yes, reputational damage is something significant. Obviously, particularly in the retail space at the moment, around non-compliance. Someone down the line did something that they weren't meant to do intentionally or not intentionally. And so, reputational damage is such a concern.
And we're not very forgiving of accidents anymore. Someone makes a small mistake, or there's a great line in Dale Carnegie's How to Influence and Influence People, where he says, if you go into a shop at Christmas time, perhaps if the shopkeeper on the other side has run out of smiles, maybe share one of yours. One of our mutual friends' common sayings after a lot was, I'm all out of nice. And within customer service and dealing with things, you run out of nice. We're humans. We I can't I need to go and recharge. But there is an expectation that you get someone at the end of an 8-hour day, maybe they ran out of nice. Maybe they didn't respond as well as they should. Maybe they've got something going on at home. But then all of a sudden, social media, the fires are burning, get the pitchforks. We need to deal with this.
But if so I we're well and truly embedded in what we call the startup ecosystem, where fail fast is really embraced, make mistakes, and empower people to do the same. So, how do we solve the problem of making mistakes and fuck ups? Because there's a thing called fuck up nights, and you should totally go, because really very highly. Yes, they really are. Genuinely, the last one I went to, a big, really successful VC, and it's Chatham House rules, so you don't talk about who and what.
Yes, but they
share completely and raw their biggest fuck ups, losing money, losing family, losing whatever it might be, making the biggest mistake of their career. And what they're demonstrating and showing is that it's perfectly okay, and that we all do that, and that it's almost creating this safe space around, let's make mistakes. And I just recently listened to Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity Again, where he talks about the hot air balloons and crashing down multiple times. He made a lot of mistakes, but he got back up again. And for me, it's almost like that the philosophy of failing needs to have different language and feeling and experience around it.
But it also needs to be framed in a way, because I've got a very strong opinion on this, and that is that if you're failing fast in an innovative kind of manner, trying things, taking risks, I get that.
Yeah.
People will tailor a story, though, to be consistent with their own thinking.
Yes.
And if they have failed doing something that they shouldn't have failed in, they may fall back on one of those stories.
Yes.
But we fail fast. So you have two very different types of failure. One failure is I took a risk and it failed. The other failure is I stuffed something up that I should have done properly.
Yeah.
And those failures, you can't ever get confused, and I think that they do, because people will be like, I did this.
Yeah.
I do the post-grad information evenings at QUT, and when I talk to people that want to do their MBAs, I say a doctor goes to does their undergrad, does their medical degree, does their specialisation, 12, 14, 15 years worth of study, so as that they are qualified to essentially impact somebody else's life, play with somebody else's life, surgery, medicine, whatever. But as leaders, you are mucking around with somebody else's head every day. And very much unqualified. And what really comes down to is we can have the same kind of impact as a doctor can on somebody else's life. And the question is, I guess, what I always promote business schools for is at least you can practice some of those conversations in a controlled environment, as opposed to always just burning through somebody at the time that it actually happens. And that, Australian MBAs are very emotive. American MBAs are far more numbers sort of game. But that EQ and that leadership piece, if we're not putting the time and effort into understanding it, then we can impact people in such a negative way. And so I'm all for mistakes, but every now and again, you've got to look at that and go, no, that risk is too high. That risk is too high to do that. And those super successful people, they often don't see that. And that's one of the things that makes them successful. But then I guess what it all stems back to is what's your definition of success? Because if you've burned through a ton of bodies to get that $1 million, is that success or is that not success? Yeah.
That's a good question.
Deep.
Incredible insights, guys. I'm going to wrap it up here, but I'm sure we'll get you guys back, because no doubt that has been a very, very interesting discussion about all things, including retail. So tune in to our next installment.